That's why when it comes to your money, it's essential to remember that while minimizing taxes may seem like a surefire way to secure your financial future, it could also be a recipe for disappointment if you're not mindful about your approach. Making a generational impact starts with one person, one family, one community. And so the Gen 1 legacy is my attempt to help first-gen tech professionals like you get your financial house in order so you can live your legacy. We live in an age of over-optimization. That's because in many ways, our culture today pushes us to squeeze every ounce of productivity out of our day. In fact, I know that I've been inspired by James Clear's Atomic Habits. And I'm sure at some point you've probably been influenced by Greg McKeown's Essentialism, or you've been schooled by Charles Duhigg's Power of Habit. And you've probably seen similar posts on social media talking about life optimization. You know the ones. These are the posts from celebrities and executives who preach the gospel of waking up at 4 a.m., about powering through 1,000 sit-ups and then jumping into a cold shower. You know, it seems like they've got it all figured out, right? Now, even if you haven't seen any of this material, the overall message is quite clear in our current day and age. And that's be faster, be smarter, and be more productive than you were yesterday. Now, I'll admit that I've been caught up in this trap of over-optimization. In fact, my entire workday is mapped out 2 months in advance. That's because most of my daily meetings and my tasks are scheduled down to the minute. I even use digital tools that let me color code my tasks, which gives me a small dopamine hit each and every time I turn them green as another task is completed throughout the day. You know, it feels great until it doesn't. That's because sometimes my hyper focus on productivity has led me to burnout. Now, what about you? Have you ever felt the pain of trying to focus on perfecting a singular outcome in your life at the expense of everything else? Maybe you've missed out on the simple joys of life, like a spontaneous coffee run with friends, running errands with your spouse and your children, or maybe that unplanned phone call with a loved one. It hurts, doesn't it? And you know, sometimes these problems extend into how some of us manage our money, especially when we're thinking about a Roth IRA. Now, don't get me wrong, Roth IRAs are great for tax-free growth, but over-optimizing these accounts can cause a whole set of problems that make it hard to get at your money when you're ready to start a new business or you're planning to retire early. That's why adopting an asset location strategy, one that balances Roth IRA contributions with other liquid investments, is essential to mitigating these liquidity risks. Because without such a strategy, you may find yourself financially constrained when it matters most. And this lack of liquidity can impact your financial health. It can jeopardize your ability to capitalize on new opportunities. And it can also potentially stall out both your professional and your personal growth. Now, with all that said, it's essential to note that a Roth IRA is a critical component of a solid investment strategy. How so? Well, let me explain why by first telling you a little bit about how a traditional IRA works. Now, when you put money away in a traditional IRA, one of the key benefits you get is tax-deferred growth. And what do we mean here by tax-deferred? Well, it means that no matter how much of your assets in your IRA grows in value or pays out dividends or interest over time, you don't owe taxes in the present because they're deferred until you take money out of the account later on down the road. Simple enough, right? Well, when you do finally take money out of your tax-deferred account, like when you retire, then a portion of your withdrawal will be held back to pay Uncle Sam his fair share of your gains that you've acquired over time. So then how does a Roth IRA differ from a traditional IRA? Well, the beauty of a Roth IRA is that you don't get taxed when you withdraw money later on down the road. In fact, when you do take your money out of your Roth IRA out in the future, it comes back to you entirely tax-free. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. The account isn't entirely free from taxes. That's because if you make a lot of money, what you'll need to do to get money into the account in the first place is to pay taxes on those contributions today instead of paying them in the future. And so what makes this account attractive if you have to pay taxes now? Well, think about it. If you can pay only $250 in taxes now on $1,000 invested and owe nothing on the $2,500 you get to pull out of that account 15 years from now, it seems like a clear win, right? Maybe so, but there are some trade-offs that you'll likely still need to consider. That's because choosing where to put your money away for the future isn't just about a tax optimization decision, it's also an emotional one as well. In fact, it involves finding balance in the way that you're putting money to work in a mindful manner. And so given all the options available to you, this can sometimes lead to a host of anxieties and second guessing because you're not sure where to start. It may even lead you to say, forget all of these options. If you've got some money to put to work, why not put it all in a Roth IRA, right? I mean, that's what most people in your situation are doing today, right? Well, that may be true, but while a Roth IRA is a powerful tool for optimizing tax savings, its attractive advantages can also lead you into a trap of over-optimization. In other words, putting all of your excess savings into a Roth can overshadow your broader financial needs and limit your optionality down the road. Now, don't get me wrong, optimization does have its benefits, but when it takes over one area of our life, then it starts to develop its own set of challenges that can trap us and complicate our financial future. And so, what does this trap of over-optimization look like? Well, it looks like taking every spare dollar that you have and putting it to work in a Roth IRA. And here again, what's wrong with this approach? Well, what's optimal on paper doesn't always align with life's unpredictable twists and turns. Because here's what happens. If all you're doing is saving money in qualified accounts like your 401k or in your Roth IRA, then you're likely leaving yourself with few options for serendipity until you turn 60. It's almost like having too much of a good thing. That's because those qualified accounts have limits on them in terms of when you can actually take your money out of your account. For example, in most situations, your ability to take money out of your qualified accounts before age 59 and a half is in many ways limited. And this rule applies whether we're talking about a 401k, a traditional IRA, or even a Roth IRA, with some exceptions applying to each. Now, unless you don't have a plan to launch your own startup or side hustle, or don't want to get into real estate investing, or don't want to retire early, then this approach of over-optimization for Roth means that you're likely limiting your future options and potentially setting yourself up for failure down the road. And so how could you be setting yourself up for failure? Well, let me tell you about someone we'll call Sarah. Now, Sarah is a tech professional in her early 40s who is really focused on managing her money well and achieving her long-term financial goals. She's earned a good income for many years and has followed the advice she's heard on Reddit about putting every extra dollar she has into a Roth IRA. Now, on the surface, Sarah's approach seems reasonable, right? She's leveraging the tax benefits available to her and she's thinking about the long term, so she must be on the right track. Well, maybe at first, but over the years, things start to change. You see, as time goes on, things are starting to happen in Sarah's life that got her more ambitious than usual. And as a result, she's decided that she wants to start her own tech consultancy before she turns 50 and possibly start investing in all the real estate opportunities that are popping up around her city. But by the time Sarah turns 48, she realizes that almost all of her savings are tied up in her Roth IRA and her 401k. Now, as I mentioned before, these accounts have certain restrictions that penalize earnings withdrawn before age 59 and a half. So what this means is that much of her savings are effectively locked up for another decade. But in the meantime, Sarah is finding all these ideal commercial properties to purchase for her startup, but because her assets are locked up in qualified accounts, she's hard-pressed to find the liquidity she needs to make a down payment. You see, her Roth IRA and her 401k are performing well, but they're inaccessible without significant penalties and tax implications, apart from the contributions she's originally made to her Roth IRA. And so this situation drives home the point of how a liquidity trap of over-optimizing for Roth and similar accounts can set us back from our best laid plans. Indeed, while Sarah has considerably grown her retirement savings over the years, it's her lack of accessible liquid assets that's hampered her ability to invest in her startup and real estate projects. Now, overall, this is a classic case of having too much of a good thing. Now, this leads us to another cost of over-optimizing for Roth that goes beyond money. And so what does this look like? Well, let's stay focused on Sarah's situation for a moment. Sarah had this perfect opportunity to start her own business, but she faced a significant barrier. And that was that her money was mostly tied up in an account that she largely couldn't touch, right? Well, could you imagine how you would feel in that moment? Put yourself in her shoes and think about the frustration and the helplessness that she felt watching the joys of potential life-changing opportunities pass her by and slip away into this deep-seated disappointment as she realized she'd limited access to her savings. In that moment, I'm sure she felt some sense of regret as she realized that she spent too much time prioritizing tax minimization over other life opportunities. But this emotional regret isn't unique to Sarah's situation. The truth is that this resentment reflects a broader trend in our society today where many well-intentioned individuals focus their energies in one area of their life and ends up draining them emotionally. In many ways, it's similar to how the life optimization ethos pushed by influencers like Tim Ferriss or James Clear are leading to unintended consequences for those who follow them. Now, I know this to be true from my own personal experience. In fact, I know how it felt when I got caught up in the over-optimization cycle that seemed like the right thing to do. That's because, like I mentioned before, there was a time where I planned every minute of my day to maximize my own productivity. And at first it was exhilarating to check off task after task each and every day. But over time, I ended up hitting a wall of burnout because I wasn't taking care of myself. Now, this wasn't just about not being able to relax. It was about neglecting my own essential need to focus on my own self-care that typically doesn't lead to productive outcomes that I can measure. And so because I was neglecting this core area of my life, I spiraled into a state of emotional exhaustion. Now, have you ever felt that way? Maybe you've been like Sarah, where you realized that the strategies that were supposed to save you money are now imposing limits on your present day goals. Now, if you have, then you know how it's more than an inconvenience. That's because these situations can become profound emotional drains, right? And so in Sarah's case, where her careful savings used to be a source of pride, they've now become a source of regret and constant second guessing. And now because of this tension now seeps into her daily life, and it affects her relationships, it affects her mood, and it affects her ability to really enjoy her life. Here again, I'm going to come back to this point once again because it's so crucial to appreciate. And that's that the financial decisions that were meant to liberate Sarah's future have instead bound her present and created a tension that's hard to reconcile. It's a stark reminder of how the pursuit of one form of security, in this case, minimizing future tax liabilities, can inadvertently destabilize other areas of our life because we had too much of a good thing. So then now that you understand the costs of over-optimizing or placing too much emphasis on Roth contributions and tax minimization, what can you do to ensure that you're not making the mistakes that can cost you financially and emotionally over the long run? Well, to start, consider whether your current saving strategy still makes sense. Now, what I like to do is to assess my current financial situation to evaluate what's changed over the past year or the past few years to determine whether my saving strategy still aligns with my life priorities. For example, if you had originally planned to use your savings to coast until age 60, but now the prospect of early retirement just around the corner at age 50 looks more appealing, then you can now use this change in perspective to better inform your savings strategy. Indeed, this step is about gaining a better understanding of how much money you will potentially need to have saved before you have access to it at age 59 and a half. So then to start down this path, what I'll do is ask, how could my life goals change in the years ahead? And will I have access to enough liquid assets to make it happen? In other words, if you wake up tomorrow and realize that you want to retire at age 50, then you'll likely need to determine how much money you should have saved in a taxable account to comfortably cover your living expenses until you could draw down those retirement accounts penalty-free at age 59 and a half. So then take some time this week to consider what you're saving. Is it just so you have enough money to carry you past age 60? Or do you want to keep your options open for other avenues like early retirement, starting that business, or investing in real estate? And if so, how much would you need to have saved in more liquid accounts over the next few years to make that happen? Now, once you've taken a thorough look at your current financial situation and have considered your future liquidity needs, the next crucial step here is to prepare your asset location strategy. And what are we talking about here? Well, it's about understanding the interplay between the different types of investment accounts, whether that's a qualified account like a Roth IRA or a 401k, or your taxable brokerage account, and how they work together to affect your overall tax burden and your investment growth. This is what we mean here when we talk about asset location. But there's more to it here. In fact, the approach that I'm talking about also involves exploring how different investments fit into each one of these accounts. In other words, you have buckets that hold your money, and those are your accounts, right? Then within those accounts, you take the cash held in them and you invest in specific securities in a way that matches what those accounts are best at doing. For example, it's generally more tax efficient to hold income generating investments like bonds in qualified accounts where the tax can be deferred. Therefore, as I'm considering an asset location strategy, I'll typically ask which investments are best suited for my Roth IRA versus my taxable brokerage account to ensure that I'm being tax efficient. Now, the big takeaway here is to understand how assets and investments fit together so you not only get the best tax efficiency you need, but also ensure you're liquid enough when you need it. And if you still need a better understanding of how these accounts and securities work together, then be sure to check out my primer on how asset location strategy work over at legacygen1.com. All right, so now that you're armed with the understanding of asset location, it's time to strategically put this knowledge to work. So then our final step involves implementing and periodically adjusting your investment strategy to ensure that it continues to meet your evolving financial needs and your life goals. And so what does this look like? Well, this stage is about putting cash to work, especially when you have a windfall like a cash bonus or stock award that vests that you otherwise want to invest in the markets. Now, ultimately, it's about applying what you've learned about asset location to create an overall portfolio that balances tax efficiency with offering you the liquidity you need to meet life's changing demands. So then to kick this off, I'll ask myself, based on my future liquidity needs and my desire for tax efficiency, how much money should I be allocating to each individual investment bucket? So then before you take that bonus or that vested stock award and put it into a backdoor Roth IRA, take a step back and evaluate whether it makes sense to put that cash into a taxable account. Now, you'll have a better understanding of how much you should put into each account when you spend some time with step number 1. Then once your funds are in the right bucket or in the right account, then be sure to use the cash proceeds to purchase assets that match the tax and liquidity needs for that account. Now, when it comes down to it, we live in an age of over-optimization where many of us are driven to get the most out of each and every day. That's why when it comes to your money, it's essential to remember that while minimizing taxes may seem like a surefire way to secure your financial future, it could also be a recipe for disappointment if you're not mindful about your approach. That's because in the same way that overstructuring your daily routine can lead to burnout, over-optimizing your Roth IRA can potentially limit your personal and professional opportunities at times when you least expect it. So then, to avoid this outcome, remember to start by taking a good, hard look at your current financial situation and determine whether you have the same life goals you did a year ago. Then take the time to educate yourself about all your investment options so you clearly understand the benefits and the limitations of qualified and taxable accounts. And finally, bring it all together with a balanced asset location strategy that ensures you're putting your windfalls to work in accounts that'll be available when you need them. Remember, this isn't just about missing out on financial gains, it's about missing out on life itself. So then don't let a fixation on future tax savings rob you of your present opportunities and your peace of mind. Imagine looking back years from now and being grateful that you took the steps to ensure that the way you manage your money today supports all the dreams you had planned between your career and your retirement. Imagine how you'll feel when you know that you have the freedom to pursue your passions, to seize opportunities that come your way, and to embrace life's surprises with confidence and ease. You know, this isn't just about optimizing for success in financial terms, it's about optimizing for success and living a fulfilled and balanced life and making choices that are taking you one step closer to becoming the master of your own financial independence journey. To learn more about today's topic, you can visit the episodes page at legacygen1.com. And if you can find one person in your life who would benefit from today's message, please share this episode with them. But until next time, I'm Peter Donisanu, wishing you and yours abundant health and prosperity.
The Gen 1 Legacy Podcast is brought to you by Franklin Madison Private Wealth. Franklin Madison Private Wealth is a registered investment advisor firm with its registration and principal place of business in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The information shared today is not intended to be personal, legal, investment, or tax advice, or solicitation to buy or sell any security or engage in a particular investment strategy. The commentary and forecasts are limited to the dissemination of and general information pertaining to Franklin Madison Private Wealth's investment advisory services and are based on economic and market conditions that are subject to change without notice. For additional information about Franklin Madison Private Wealth, including fees and services, please contact Franklin Madison Private Wealth or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosures.